Good morning, and good morning. We're coming here from the city of Northridge right now, and we're on Plummer and Corbin out of my favorite restaurant. It's actually one of my favorite breakfast houses, which is the Corner Bakery. Big fan of it. And I'm with my good friend, Ms. Diana Steele. And today we're coming back for part 2 to Executive Egos. I think that part 1, we left a couple doors open, and it was kind of just like an introductory to the conversation. I'm even thinking like it can turn into even a small series, because you know what? That area is so broad, right? I mean, it's absolutely so broad. Thanks for tuning in here at my financial specialist in LA. Inbox me, let me know where you're listening from. I know we have listeners in New York, in New Zealand, Australia. Big shout out to all the survivors and just everything that's going on in Australia. My prayers and just great thoughts, and hopefully we you guys can settle those fires in, man. So, because I live in Santa Clarita, and I already imagine like how bad it is out there. So we got that in, and just again, thank you guys for tuning in the midst of everything. Share the podcast, share it with your friends. Look, people need to listen to these conversations. I like to call it water cooler talk, because at the water cooler is where a lot of the real conversations really take place. The bad management, the dissatisfaction, and so many other things. So definitely share the podcast. Let your friends know that there's something bubbling in LA. And trust me, we're not going to be holding back from the material and the content that we're going to be giving you guys. And everything's really coming from the sincerity of our hearts. So today, we're kicking off here with Ms. Diana Steele, and we're going to be talking about Executive Egos Part 2, right? Human Resource Edition. And Diana, say hi.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here again. And
can you remind them like who you are a little bit? You know, just to all the new listeners that are going to be listening to as well too.
Absolutely. So my name is Diana Steele. I am a strategic leadership consultant. I do human resources consultant, and I specialize in leadership development and in emotional intelligence. Emotional
intelligence. I'll tell you something, and I've actually in the last couple of years I've been thinking like how important EQ. I mean, what is it? No, EI is. Mm-hmm. You know, emotional intelligence is so important. Really, it is. So we're going to jump into this conversation really quick. That way we won't take your time, much of your time, but definitely, tune in, because we're definitely going to start creating a series for you guys of valuable conversations on business operations. And look, let me tell you something. We're not trying to say that we're the gurus of all this stuff, right? We're not trying to make it seem like we're the masters of this. We kind of met eye to eye on a lot of things on the same frequency, and we're just like, hey, you know what, these are valuable conversations that are happening in companies that we should be bringing up to the public. So just look at it like that. We're all in the same boat, we're all running businesses, and we're all contributing to the same platform together. And if there's anything you guys want to really hear or listen, or any specific topic, just let us know, right, Diana?
Absolutely. I think that feedback is important, but more brains and heads think together with better ideas than one or two.
I agree.
So all of us together can achieve more.
Yeah, that's very true. So again, let's kick this off. Let's kick this conversation off already. Explain to me a little bit, Diana, which I think a lot of people struggle with this conversation with themselves, because everybody talks to themselves, right? Everybody talks to themselves. You're not crazy. I think you're crazy if you don't talk to yourself.
Absolutely. And to talk about the topic of why being yourself in business is key, which is kind of what we want to concentrate on today.
Yeah.
Being yourself in business is key because, other than yourself, you're able to come up with what is your commitment, what's your consistency, your creativity, your purposefulness, your reflection, and even what you're grateful for. All of those things are only happen within oneself. You can't copy that from somebody else, and you can't say that you feel grateful for things that other people have done that maybe perhaps you haven't been in their shoes and you haven't done them. So all of these things about commitment, consistent, creativity, purposefulness, reflection, gratefulness are really important to be yourself. As you evaluate and you come up with a brand, or you're coming up with your leadership style, or you're coming up with a way that you represent yourself. With that, resources also come into play, because the resources that one person may have are different than others.
That's true.
So in order to be yourself in business, you've got to understand what resources do you have available, and utilize those to the max. But also you need to understand what resources are you lacking that you need to pursue, right, so that you can work towards those.
And you know what? She touched on something really important, which is resources, right? Sometimes we get enamored by our leaders, by the people that are coaching us, by our mentors, and and definitely a lot of them are successful, which I think success is a subjective term. It's all subjective, but I think you being like the understudy, the student, right? You get enamored by that, and then you kind of lose yourself in you finding out who you are, right? You finding out, who your identity is in business. And many times, because I tell you this because it happened to me, where I would say I was so in love with who my mentor was, in the sense of like his leadership, that everything he did was right. And I ended up finding out that a lot of the stuff that he was doing was unethical, right? And then it turned into like a relationship where he wasn't resourceful to me anymore, because I was learning bad habits.
Absolutely.
Right.
And with being yourself in business comes sacrifices, right? Yeah. What are you willing to give up, and what are you willing to not have anymore, or what are you willing to put on the table or leave on the table for your business, for your dream, for your leadership. And in order for that to be really,
which that includes your ego.
That includes your ego, but in order for that to truly be worth it, you've gotta be yourself. You gotta know, if I care about this, and this is what I'm willing to sacrifice, what I'm willing to leave on the table in order to gain this, whatever it is that you're gaining, then you're gonna feel that decision has been made by you, and you don't feel like you're not second guessing yourself.
You're not second guessing yourself.
Every time that you're doing something that someone has told you, because either it's worked for them or they've done it, and you're not truly 100% sure it's your decision, or it works for you, or it connects with your style,
right,
then when you do it, you're always regretful, and you're always second questioning. And it almost never leaves your brain, because it's going around and around.
Yeah.
And with that being said, being yourself, you evaluate where are the areas where you need to grow. Yes, there is value in getting feedback on the areas that people with their observations and what they see that you need to grow. But nobody more than yourself should be self-aware and know where are the areas that you need to grow.
And look at this, like she touched on something really important right now. You kind of being honest with yourself and really seeing what areas you need to grow in. That self-analyzation, that self-reflection is golden. And your early levels, and like if you're in sales, right, and let's say you're making money, and let's say you probably think you probably found the key, and you stop reflecting at that point. And what I'm saying is this: there should be always a constant indicator flashing, like a check engine light in your car, always saying, hey, how can I get better as a person? How can I get better as self-educating? Because look, Diana, really, what do you think are the effects that a person can really go through when they're not really themselves in business? Like, what do you think, like the potholes that they can start facing are?
Well, to start, some of the effects of,
we're on the street too. Know that we're out here doing it.
When some of the effects are like gaps gaps in various ways. Gaps in knowledge, gaps in financial gaps, gaps in relationships. The other effects are attitude, because when you aren't yourself in business, you adopt and you portray an attitude that is likely not
yourself,
truly matching
like
who you are. And what happens is people treat you based on your attitude, and in reflection, you get their attitude as a response of yours, which if the initiation is erroneous, then what you're getting back isn't going to feel very good.
It's not going to feel good at all.
You know? There's also a lack of action. When you're not yourself, you overthink so many decisions because they're not yours. They're not your ideas, or they're not how you thought about them, or they're not in the way that you thought them in your head in terms of the process. So there's lack of action because you delay doing those things, because they're not coming from you. They're not arising from your soul, from yourself. And another effect is also, sort of like a cycle of like victim and anger and blame, which is a full cycle that we go through.
That's a full cycle.
When we are, in a situation of frustration or high stress, where we it's not our fault and we did everything right and everybody else did everything wrong, and then you're angry because deep inside that you had the answer but you did not follow through on your instinct. And then you blame yourself because you should have known better. But that cycle and that little circle could be very repetitious. It could be very vicious in a way where, if it happens often and often and often, it damages your self-esteem.
Big time.
And then you no longer feel that you've got what it takes to do this, right? So timing is...
And it can eventually end up pushing you out of the business.
Absolutely.
Period.
So timing is so important, because when you are yourself in business and you identify the timing of doing something, you're not hesitating, it's you pull the trigger, is good to go. When not, you lose some golden opportunities. And the problem is that, and all of us know this because it's happened to all of us, when we look back and we're like, dang it, like I missed it. It totally blew over my head. But we're so involved in all these other little things that the effects of having our attention in the wrong, in the wrong, or the side tracks of trying to find who we are as a person in business, then it leads us to this. I think another thing is this, right? When you're not really yourself in business, or let's say when you're struggling to find who you are in business, because again, I've been on that boat, you get like the fear of not pleasing others starts kicking in, right? Which can eventually lead you into feeling depressed. They can eventually lead you into it can lead you into a depression, right? Where you're looking at your psychiatrist and blah blah blah. And I'm telling you, it's such a real topic. It's such a real conversation, because I think a lot of people are very unhappy because they're not themselves. They're scared to be themselves. They're scared to dress, like themselves, right? They're scared to, you can't fear. One thing I want to encourage you guys is stop trying to be like these flashy CEOs, right? Like, you don't know what it took for them to get there, right? And everybody's scenario is different, right? And what's gonna happen is you're gonna run into these pit holes that you might not be able to get out of it, right? And if your business is everything, if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, right? It's important for you to start finding who you are. Be yourself. Make decisions based on your intuition, not just based on, a fad, right? Or because they're doing it, I want to do it. You get it? Correct. And a lot of times, you will ask people, hey, can you share with me, what have you done And there are people that are going to give you the recipe.
Yeah.
And that's great. But there are people that are not going to give you the recipe. And the question is, how do you really know which one is it?
Yeah.
So, there is not
That's
a level
true.
of mistrust. I think it's a level of checking with yourself. And if you're the kind of person that knows your instinct and you know yourself enough to know that you can trust or move forward on a certain situation, if it works out for you, great. And if it doesn't work out, you have the level of maturity to say, you know what, it was my decision, it didn't work for me, I can move on. Not, oh, this person told me to do this and now I've lost all this money and my business has taken, a dent. Yet it was your decision to follow something that, or put your plans in somebody else's hands.
And then, and you know what that's called? Trying to take shortcuts. Whenever you're trying to take a shortcut in business, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. I'm telling you that right now. Stop trying to take shortcuts in your fucking business. Stop. I'm just being as honest as possible. Stop trying to take shortcuts in your business, because that's where you leave these open doors of vulnerability to just
Lose money.
Yeah, to lose money because you want a quick gain,
And so when we talk about, now we talked about what happens, what happens when you're not yourself in business, what are the effects. So when we talk about, okay, all of you maybe think, okay, so I know all of that, I heard it. So what are some ways?
Clint, like I'm closing my shop right now. Don't do it. Hold on.
So what are the ways to begin moving towards finding your print in business, your
thumbprint, your identity,
brand, your identity, so people know, hey, this person walked in the door and that's so and so. That's
like your Apple moment, right?
Absolutely, your branding moment,
right?
So we have to go. You've got to start from going from accidental to intentional growth.
Ooh, I love that.
So if a lot of your popularity, if your business, your networking, if things just happen by the luck of the dime because you happen to be at the right time, at the right place with the right people, then that is called accidental growth. And it could work in many occasions,
but it's very rare.
It's very rare. And it's not something that it's easily identified.
And look, hold on, let me touch on something really quick. Stop looking for that growth. I mean, have you guys even look, one thing I would sit down and watch Shark Tank. Like, just one of these days, or just go on YouTube. Look how many people come on there and ask for money, right? On Shark Tank,
Absolutely.
right? And some of them are not ready for that type of growth. They're just not.
Absolutely.
Right? And many times you just going through the trenches, it's the best process on earth. Like you grounding your business up from the ground up, it's the best process on earth.
So intentional growth includes things like, okay, you know all the mistakes you've made, and now you're doing things before those mistakes. So
right.
Stop. I mean, when we're growing up, they always tell you it's always great to learn from your mistakes. Get it. But when you are in business, every mistake you make equals a certain amount of dollars. And if you want, you should be able to foresee and forecast and say, okay, if I've already done this or I've done it in this way and it cost me this much and it did not bring me any profit or did not give me the result that I wanted, well, if somebody proposes, let's do this, and just because they're one of those people that are doing better than you are, it doesn't mean you do it again.
Look,
because you know that it didn't work. Or then you learn from your mistake and you can tweak how you did it, look at the process, but really evaluate rather than waiting for things to happen and then not do them.
And let me touch on this really quick. Sometimes that mistake is really not a mistake. If you're doing it intentionally, going back to what what we're talking about, Deanna was mentioning, intentional, that mistake many times is just a small calculated risk to see if it functions or not. But don't try to bet the house to try to get 150% rate of return on a calculated risk that can endanger the operation of your business, right? Like, there's mistakes that are calculated, that are okay to make, and it's okay, because part of your business, you have to take losses. Yeah, in order for you to know, how the business is functioning. It's what type of risk tolerance does it have. But if you're just trying to just swing the bat and try to get 150% return on a 20, and you're endangering the operation of your business, it's very unfair.
Absolutely. So we can move on to what other things you can do, or some ways that we can begin to be ourselves in business,
and moving in the right direction as well, correct. Too.
So we would say, instead of talking big, and when I mean talking big, I'm talking about,
please.
Let's say you have an idea.
We're tweeting big.
No, let's say you have an idea.
Yeah.
You are, and it may be a good idea, but you're still doing your due diligence, or you're still finding the pieces. Long story short, it is not a done deal. Meaning it is not rolling already, nor it's producing for you. Then don't allow yourself to get ahead of yourself and be in the way of that plan to take its course.
Because many times you're the enemy.
Sometimes
it's not anybody else.
You talk so big that you stop following through because you're too busy with what everyone else is saying and how happy everyone is for your success when the car hasn't even started rolling. So let the car roll and allow the car to prove to you that it functions.
I hate applause. I actually hate applause.
And then you can follow through, and you can do it, but you can follow through on every little thing that you're supposed to follow through to ensure that it continues rolling.
Yeah.
Right? And
look, be scared when everybody's applauding, in the sense of like complacency. Like when you get to that point where everybody's applauding, find a new way to create a higher bar to reach from there, so that way you don't stop the momentum of your growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that there are times when things aren't going to work, and there are people in business, or just people in general, relationship in general, that will disappoint you because your expectations of that specific situation or person were much higher than maybe what you got.
Than expected,
and
right? Yeah.
I think that those are the true tests of being yourself in business, is when something like that occurs and you do not have a victim mentality, you have a learner mentality. Because those are all lessons that everyone, some people more than others have them.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to learn from those and take your responsibility of what part did you take in that, then the victim goes away, and you're not spending a lot of time overthinking something that already happened, already gave you the result. You already instinctively know why it happened. You can just move on and continue to go on. That is really important. Because as you move through those steps, if you want to self-reflect, or you want to really allow others to go on their way so that you can keep going on your way, you can have more healthy business relationships.
Yeah.
You know what to expect from people. People know what to expect from you.
And stop over-expecting stuff from people. Listen, look, your employees, and there's a lot of businessmen that have said it, your employees are never going to be more passionate in your business than you are. Like, they're not, right? So you lead the way by creating that energy, by creating that optimism, right? By creating that culture, like you bring that, right? So that's why it's important that you find your identity in who you are, so that the monster that you're building, right, it's going to be your little monster. It's going to be your machine. It's going to be it's going to be exactly how you see it in your head. And I think one thing that we were talking with Diana right now about an hour ago, that it's really important for you to see the vision of how you see the things and execute on that. Absolutely. Because you're the only one that's going to execute on how you want it to look. You get it? So
So
You have that.
So some reflecting tips for kind of building your self-esteem,
Self-reflecting.
building your self-worth as a business owner. Because you do a lot, and there's so much on your shoulders. There is so much weight, and you're willing to take it because that's what entrepreneurs do. That's why they're in business, to do something that only they can do. So some of the self-reflecting tips, in a positive, in an effective way, would be accepting what you're good at. I'm not talking about applauding yourself and giving yourself pats in the back because you're good at something. Just accepting that you're good at something and move on. Okay, I'm good in creating new clients. Okay, that's a great strength. Move on. Keep doing that and keep doing it even better, but move on. What else? You accept your weaknesses. For example, I am not very good at coming up with like accounts payable. A lot of business owners are not very good themselves at knowing who owns them what.
Yeah.
They usually have somebody that the whole job or some of their job is to keep track of how many people owe them money. Okay, that's a weakness.
Yeah.
So leave it where it is, because as an entrepreneur and a business owner or a business person, if you can't do everything and be good at everything, because then you don't really accomplish.
Oh yeah.
You accomplish a lot, but you don't accomplish the next step.
A lot of people are like, well, I need to make sure that my business is fully operating, and I don't trust her because she only has 1 year out of college. Let me tell you something. You undermining that 1 year student out of college just because she might not have so much business experience, it's very naive of you.
Absolutely.
Because that's where you delegate and you create and duplicate yourself into somebody to supplement where you're weak. Like, you have to learn how to duplicate yourself so that your weak areas, you're not losing money. And now when you duplicate yourself, guess what? Now you have an overhead, but that there's going to be a rate of return on that weakness now. And it's going to be somebody that's going to really love to send those emails. There's going to be somebody that's going to really love to call those clients and say, thank you for buying from us. And if you don't like doing that, just duplicate somebody that does that for you.
Absolutely. So, when you also the next thing is to accept your interests and your opportunities.
Yeah.
Because when you know, okay, this is what I love doing, what my passion is, what my interest is, and you're good with that, and you pursue that, and you incorporate that into your life, into your business. Doing business is not so hard.
It's not.
And I'm not talking about hard in terms of working hours, because you may put 16, 18, 20 hour work days, but it is not going to feel like that.
It's not.
Because you are so passionate. You're feeding your passion into your business by allowing your interest to be a portion
Diana,
of it.
let me say something. And you know what? You might be thinking in your head right now, well, when am I ever going to get to that point? Right? Like, when do I get to that point? I'm stuck at an office, right? I'm stuck in working for somebody. How do I get to that point of freedom that you're talking about, Diana?
Apply the same. You've got to go from accidental to intentional growth.
Right.
You happen to run into a meeting, or you did one good report, and now, everyone thinks that you can maybe take on more. Well, that's accidental growth. Is it intentional? You're doing your best every day. You're speaking to the right people. Your smile, the shake of your hand, everything about you says, I want to work here, I want to be here, I want to grow here. And that is intentional growth. You're sending the right signals. You're doing the right things, so the people that work around you, when they're thinking of who is the next person that should do X, Y, and Z, your name should pop up. And it's not only by words. It's your whole persona. It's your the way you come across. It's the way that you look at people. It's the way that they see you in the hallway. Their perception of you. So everything plays the same if your growth
and you're in sales.
It's intentional.
Look,
Absolutely.
you might not be in sales like selling like dresses, selling cars, selling homes. Like, you might not be in sales in that sense. But you're selling your work, you're the way you dress, you're the way you talk, right? Just, We sell ourselves every single day. And if you're saying, okay, Clint, look, like, how do I start transitioning over to become self-employed? Like that, like, how do I start doing that? Well, you know what? You have to start going, like Diana said, start finding those interests and your passions and start working at night towards them. Like we have a lot of hours in a day, right? You have social media right now. You have the world, the international world of commerce has been now united by this internet, by your phone. You have a computer literally in your hand, not just for Facebook alerts, not just for Snapchat posts, but you have the world in your hand.
Absolutely. So, to end in terms of self-reflection, I think that when you've put all these things to play, as a person, as an individual, as a business person, as a business or as an employee, as somebody who is moving in the right direction, you're able to have awareness. You're able to take action at the right time with the right amount of secureness. You're able to have accountability because you know within you when you've done something right and when you've done something wrong, and what are you going to do to either fix it or move on from that. And then the last thing, which is the most important one, all these things together form something that is called the law of attraction, which is where the things that you're putting out there are the things coming your way.
Yeah.
And somehow you feel that it is all working in a synergy, and it's not happening by itself, and it's not happening because you've got some crown over or halo over your
or
head.
Positive thoughts.
It is happening because you are taking all
Yeah.
the steps mentally, emotionally, and physically to get that ball rolling.
And look at this. This whole thing here is just it sounds complicated and difficult in the sense of like we don't want to complicate or difficult or make this whole finding yourself difficult, but it takes work. It takes intentionality for you to start saying, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to start building towards. And stop trying to be like Elon Musk, right? Stop trying to be like Steve Jobs. Stop trying to be like Cardi B, right? Like, I'm not saying don't, but I'm just saying each one of those CEOs, like each one of these owners of these businesses, they were not scared to be themselves. And so this is coming back to you not being scared to be yourself, but start growing, right? Start really, identifying your strengths, your weaknesses.
Everything else is already so hard when we're working towards something,
Yeah.
some sort of financial independence.
Yeah.
That having to deal with figuring out who we are in business,
It's another giant
Yeah. task. So getting that out of the way very quickly and representing yourself and creating your brand and moving on from that it leaves the room for so much more.
That's it. She dropped the mic. There's nothing else that we can say. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Let us know, what key points that were really valuable for you. We'll do a Q&A. We'll actually post on a Q&A a few days after this podcast. Make sure you tune in. It's either going to be on Instagram or on Facebook Live. But definitely let us know what were your key takeaways in today's podcast. We hope that we were, our whole thing is this, just bringing value and just trying to be our best every single day, right? And hopefully we were able to bring some value to you, and you identifying yourself, just like look, like Dana and I, we're doing the same thing. We're on the same boat every single day. We're trying to better ourselves, and that's all we're trying to do here.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your time.
Enjoy your week.